Sensitivity is intelligence. With grace and skill, you have abundance. Welcome to the Psychic Hour. Host Kelly Brickle is a psychic medium healer, numerologist, and teacher. Her passions are learning about the soul and energy. Whether it's through spirit, emotion, or vibrational numbers, there's always a pathway of information waiting to help. Now, here is your host of the Psychic Hour, Kelly Brickle.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Psychic Hour on WLTKDB. Let's Talk Radio. Welcome. We have Calise Simone today as our guest. She's a psychic medium. Here we go. That's so okay. All right. We'll start from the top. Hello, everybody. Gosh, isn't that funny how that's been happening? That's a sign, right? That's a sign of like dun dun dun. Hold up. Come on in and check your mic. And I did earlier, but I think I clicked the mute button. Can you believe that? I accidentally clicked the mute button somehow. Okay. Hello. All right. So I wanted to say welcome to WLTKDB. Let's Talk Radio. We are smack dab in our week again. And we are in a world month of 5. And so I'm a numerologist. So I like to just talk about the energies of the year, the month, and the week, however it just comes up. And yeah, isn't it amazing that we are already halfway through August? And it's really true to the fact that it's a 5 month. It's a world 5 month. So everyone will be experiencing the 5 energy. Collectively, you'll all be experiencing different numbers as well because you have different charts. Everyone has a different chart. Everyone's in a different cycle, but everybody collectively shares the world cycles. And so that affects like politics, communities, global issues. And that 5 energy makes things go very, very fast, where you feel like, you know, you're like, I just got to keep up. I'm here. I just got to keep up. So it's that really quick energy that actually will make things come at you a little bit chaotically at times, but ultimately it keeps you on your toes because it's such a fast moving energy. So know that is the flavor of the month, that 5 energy, and just embrace it. Embrace it because 5 invites you to have a good time, to experience, to explore, and to adventure. It's a very hands-on, just absorption of learning in the moment number. So it's fun, but if you're wondering why this month is going so fast? Well, that's the reason why. The topic that I was really inspired to talk about, besides a little numerology, is dreams. I think Calise inspired this topic. So shout out to Calise. And I wanted to talk about dreams, what they mean to you, lucid dreams a little bit, because they're so powerful. And I think people connect to dreams in very different ways. You might find you have a spontaneous dream. You might find that that is an intuitive gift, that loved ones come to you in dreams, or that you can get even premonitions in dreams. And dreams are so important to talk about because it's really when our minds are not thinking, our minds and brains, they're in a different state. And that state actually is similar to when people do mediumship or readings. There's actually been brain studies where they have scanned psychic mediums' brains, and their brain state is in theta or delta while they're dreaming. And so, like when you're in a meditative state, for instance, your brainwave state is in theta and it can dip into delta. And then when you're sleeping, you're usually in delta. And when you're awake, you're in alpha and beta, maybe some theta, but mostly alpha and beta. And so, right, when you're able to do a reading, you're actually dipping into a state where you're almost dreaming in a sense to talk to the spirit world. Like a large portion of your brain is shut off because it needs to really connect to a different type of consciousness. And so that's why dreams are so fascinating, because the spirit world goes, oh, this is the perfect time to deliver a message. This is a perfect time to talk to you or grab your attention. And I think with lucid dreaming, for those who have experiences, multiple ones, or have practiced, there is really something to be said for that. So if anyone has, lucid dreaming experiences, please. Someone's asking right now, Kaden is, I need to know when I'm lucid dreaming, whatever wounds happen to me in the dream, I wake up with the same. Oh, okay. Sometimes we can be so psychologically connected to what's happening in our dreams that we wake up and we're like, the connection of what I just experienced to my reality, I cannot separate the two. And so it does speak of the power of when we are in a dream state. And it also speaks of the power of how we are who we are, and the lessons that are coming to us are from multiple times, multiple realms. And sometimes we feel like, where's this coming from? Where is that coming from? It's really all connected, Kaden. And just like stick in your power and ground yourself as you're learning about who you are and who your identity is, despite the people around you and despite the circumstances around you, or where you feel like you connect to in time, in moment, in circumstance. So I'm kind of just sharing that with you for a second. But with lucid dreaming, you can actually practice. And lucid is just clear dreaming. And the way to do that is journaling. If you can, talking out loud your dreams right when you wake up. And really like journaling, so you can actually have a waking relationship with your dreams. Whether or not that sounds like a contradiction, it is a truth. You can have a waking relationship with your dreams, where maybe when you wake up, you don't quite understood what you experienced. But when you start journaling it, and let's say you go back 2 weeks, you go, oh, there's actually relevance in that message, or I understand, what this context is. And you have to have perspective. You have to have perspective, connection, and understanding to grow sometimes your understanding of signs and symbology that the spirit world is trying to give to you. So it's a process. But yeah, I've been having some really cool dreams lately, and a lot of them have to do with like aspects from the past, and it feels very abstract and ambiguous. So what I do when I wake up is I think about it, and then I talk about it out loud, and if it still doesn't make sense, then I do write about it. And then I start putting the pieces together. And it might not make sense, the dream itself, if I were to logically think of it, correct? But if I am to feel out the themes or the people who came up in my dreams, or I guess, the scenario of the dreams, like, are we being chased, am I flying, right? Are the people that I'm with helping me, or are they against me, right? Just the themes at play is how I associate my relationship with that person, or that memory, or that feeling with my subconscious. And it actually provides you a lot of information for processing things, or the spirit world is saying, hey, we're going to make you think about these things. They're not going to make sense. So since they're not going to make sense, you're going to be thinking about them a lot. And we want you to be thinking about them. So we're going to make you think about them and be confused, because if you're confused, you'll think about them more, right? And so it will invite you to kind of, whether you're thinking about it throughout the day or you're sitting down and meditating, and invites you to sit with those thoughts. And yeah, the way that we process them is not exactly in a linear fashion, but it gets the job started. So I know, if you can think about kind of your last poignant or your last powerful dream where it kind of stopped you in your tracks, or it could have been just something like out of the blue, like someone called your name in a dream, or you saw somebody in your dream that you hadn't seen in a long time, and it created a certain emotion, and you wake up and you're like, okay, like, I definitely remember that, or like, wow, what an interesting dream. Whatever you experienced, the spirit world made sure that it stuck with you, because it's opening the door for you to do something with that, whether to have curiosity, whether to have full meaning, or whether to actually grow and heal. There are 1,000 things that the spirit world wants to encourage for you in your life. And not only does that happen with spirit communication, but that when we are in the walking, waking world, but it absolutely happens when we are in the dreaming world too as well. So I invite you to start to explore, and if you want, fine tune your relationship with how you do dream and what comes to you. And you might actually, just thinking about this, recall some moments where you already had these experiences, and start to refine that, maybe to step into it yet again. Just a couple thoughts. Let's see. Jesse Cat says, then today's dream, I turned myself. Oh, in today's dream, she turned herself into an owl and she was flying, and she knows these dreams mean messages. Yeah. Flying dreams a lot of times are connected to intuitive abilities. I've heard multiple people talk about, like, children who had a lot of flying dreams when they were younger. They were very sensitive and they're very intuitive. And it's really connected to, we are so much more than our bodies, and the freedom we have, and our, and our wonderment, and that we can fly above the situation, or we can see a situation bigger than just, our life. Sometimes my situations, or the people's situations around me, are so much more than just me living as Kelly. They're connected to my soul of many lifetimes, or they're connected to my soul family of many lifetimes. And it's just that vista, the higher vista, and our ability to actually see more than what's going on sometimes is connected to flying. And it's just fun too, right? Why not? If you can do it, why not, right? And then the owl, yeah, that's definitely connected to spirit, wisdom, perception, um, seeing clearly when it's dark. I love the owl. The owl's so fun with wisdom and spirituality. And I guess we'll take one more question really quick, and then we will dip into a break. What about when you go over your dream all the next day, remembering it all? No, yeah, yeah. So that's the point you want to get to. That's when you are succeeding with lucid dreaming. If you can remember it clearly and it sticks with you, the entire day, then you are aware enough where you can start understanding what's going on in both states and start working with that and actually receiving even more messages so you can open up the frequency of it. You might find you're like, okay, I'm able to do this. And yeah, this is just something that I can do, but how much have you been doing it? How much do you want to do it? Because with lucid dreaming, you can actually increase the frequency that if you want to can happen almost every night. And you can really do a lot of soul exploration, whether with yourself or welcoming guides to help you with your journeys. So like really deep spiritual quests. It's I'm telling you, it you go down the rabbit hole, right? When you open yourself up to working with energies that you actually can communicate with. Like you're actually communicating with the dream realm that spirit is working with you in. So it's really the spirit world, honestly. But you are saying, I can remember the messages that you're giving me. They're sitting with me, and a communication is happening. And that's what you want. So great, awesome. I'm happy to hear that, Sharon. We will be back on that. Now, I hope I like stirred up some curiosity and percolated some thoughts of dreams for you. And then let's go to the waking world with Calise when we come back, right? See you in a few, and we'll be back. Hello and welcome back, and let's welcome Calise in.
Hi,
Calise.
Hi.
How you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks for asking. I want to introduce you to everybody, and so people know who you are. And Calise Simone is an Australian-born, New York-based psychic medium and spiritual teacher. She comes from a lineage of mediums and intuitives before her. Whether through an event, personal reading, or a group setting, you can catch Calise teaching about topics such as energetic healing, manifestation, and meditation through her many classes. Welcome, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
For sure. Like, please, yeah, diving in. You have a lot of offerings and classes coming up with a wide variety of if people are interested in energy and opening up their gifts.
That's right, I do. And I list all of these on my website. So the quickest way for everyone to find out is really just to jump on, it's calisesimone.com. But I teach all sorts of interesting classes. I teach one-on-one mentoring and help people recognize and develop their own intuitive and mediumship abilities. I teach people how to meditate, how to access energetic healing from the spirit world. And also my favorite, they're all my favorites. So I'm a bit biased when I say this, but one of the favorite courses I teach is the Manifestation Masterclass, where I teach people how to access the life of their dreams.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. Hey, back to dreams, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And is it something that they work with journaling, with meditation, or is it just multiple sources of how they can access this power point of abundance inside of them?
Yeah, and I love the way you phrase that it's within, because everything is, right? Everything's within us, and then how we shine that out onto the world is how it creates. So when I teach people how to manifest, I would say it's a multi-pronged approach, because it's not just thinking about what you want, it's also about putting it out there, but putting it out there in the right way. Also, we do meditations. I teach them exercises. I would say it's a combination of theory, meditations, and exercises during the classes. It's a lot of fun. It's definitely a lot of fun.
Do people come away going, wow, okay, I could just keep doing more with this. I could keep doing so much more with this.
Yeah. And so because of that, I actually had to develop a level 1 and a level 2 because there was just so much demand. And then as that kind of went on, I just even years later get letters, emails, DMs from students saying, you wouldn't believe it. When I started the class, I was unemployed. I was behind on my car payments. I had nowhere to live. This was a true story. And then she said, and now I have my dream job. It's unlimited earnings. And you know, I've found my beautiful place, and so I'm so much happier. And so it's interesting to see the shifts that can be achieved when someone is guiding you and sort of keeping you in the right mindset of how to achieve them, plus helping you to understand what spiritual steps you can take to bring that to you, so you don't have to go out there and get it yourself.
For sure, for sure. You know, sometimes we need someone to remind us. When you had your personal realizations of this is possible and I want to teach this to other people, what was going on within your life where you were able to open that door to that world and go, okay, this is pretty powerful and I need to show people this?
Oh, yeah. So I've been manifesting probably for about 15 years now. And, you know, in some respects, that's a long time. In comparison to other people, it's a very short time. But for me, as soon as I learned about it, I thought, I want to give this a shot. I want to try this out. And so what I ended up putting together in the course is everything that I've tried that worked and nothing that doesn't work. Because there are things out there that are being taught that work in some cases for some people and not for others. You know, for some people, standing there and saying an affirmation can be really powerful, but for other people, if they just don't believe that affirmation and they don't embody it, it's not going to work for them and it's not going to resonate with them. So, you know, just learning how to navigate belief systems. But to answer your question, I was on my way from Australia to move to New York when I started to learn about manifestation. And I used that as part of my journey in attracting the job that I wanted to relocate me, because I was in a situation where I wanted to move but was going to be sponsored through the work I was doing. I used to work in the corporate world. And so I was like, all right, universe, I have to, you know, attract a job. And one of my friends at the Spiritualist Church handed me a book and said, you've got to read this. So I started to find out about manifestation. And that afternoon I thought, okay, I really need a haircut. I haven't had a haircut in a very long time because I'd, you know, been interviewing and working and just very, very busy. And I asked a friend for a name for salon and she said, okay, this is the salon I go to. We were texting, which is why I'm doing this. And she said, this is the name of the salon I go to, but, you know, it's probably going to be a couple of weeks till you get an appointment. By the way, you're coming to dinner tonight at 8 o'clock. And I was like, yes, I'll see you at dinner. And then I thought, well, I'd really love to have a haircut before dinner, but oh, well, let's just see. And so I put it out there to the universe and I put the energy out there and I called them and I said, you know, can I get an appointment? They said, no, sorry, we're fully booked. And I was like, okay. And then I just kind of let go of the energy and she said, wait, someone just cancelled. Can you be here at 6? I said, yes, I can. I will see you then. And I got my haircut and it was literally the best haircut I've ever had. And part of my manifestation was that I needed it to be affordable, and it was $40, which in Manhattan is unheard of, to get a wonderful haircut for $40 or just a haircut in general. So that was like the first moment where I'm like, okay, there could be something to this.
Absolutely. Yeah. And just following the breadcrumb trails, I think that's, you know, fun to talk about, because all of a sudden you're like, I need a haircut. And you're like literally making this major move. You're going to, you know, and you're like, today, this has come up. Let's see if I can do something about it. And it manifests exactly what you need with the best haircut you've ever had.
That's it. And so then you build confidence in it, because then you're like, okay, well, I can do it for this. Maybe I can do it for that. Maybe I can do it for that. And so it's just overcoming our belief blockages that it is actually possible, because it's possible whether you believe it or not. However, believing that things can happen will allow them to flow a lot easier, because you won't be getting in your own way and self-sabotaging the process. You know, it was a much younger age when, I mean, I have to even admit, like, I grew up very sciencey. You know, when you die, that's it. I wasn't very spiritual. Even though I was seeing dead people and having all these experiences, I didn't always believe in spirit. I didn't always know that spirit was a thing or spirit was real. And then one time I was with my mom and we were driving in the car. I was probably about 14 or 15. And she was saying to me, no, everything happens for a reason. You know, like there's more than just this. And I said, yeah, right, Mom, whatever, you know. And so we got into this sort of like, you know, passionate debate, and, you know, very respectful. We were both kind of like, you know, and excited about this idea of, she's like, no, there really is. And I'm like, how? Okay, prove it to me. And as we're having this conversation, we're on our way to a shopping mall, and we keep missing the turn to turn into the parking lot to go to the up ramp. And she said, you see, that happened for a reason. And then we missed it again because we got back into the debate, and we must have missed the turn at least 3, maybe 4 times. Wow. So we're going around this block, around and around and around. And then eventually she says, this is happening for a reason. You have to believe me. I promise you there's a reason for this. And I was like, all right, fine. We're not going to talk. So we both agreed we would stop talking just so that we didn't miss it a 5th time. So we stopped talking. We got the ramp. We finally got up into the parking garage, parked the car, and then, you know, closed the doors, went shopping. And there's an elevator that takes you, because we were on the roof. We drove up to the roof, and then the elevator takes you down into the shopping mall. And as I'm walking towards the elevator, the doors close. And I was like, oh, okay. And so we're standing there and we're waiting and we're waiting. And then the fire alarm goes off and the elevator got stuck. And she said, you see, had we been a minute earlier, we would be stuck in that elevator. I was like, oh, that's true. Yes, it did happen for a reason. And so it was from there that I started to think, maybe there's something out there. But again, you know, I'm very stubborn with my spiritual beliefs. So it took me many years after that to understand that there was more and more.
Are you still a little stubborn?
Oh, sometimes. I mean, for the most part, the way I operate is, if I've lived it and I've seen it and I've experienced it, it has to be true. You know, like if there's something where I haven't quite experienced it, I'll be healthily skeptical, which I appreciate in my clients as well. Healthy skepticism is a good thing. But I'll never be cynical, because anything's possible and you just don't know. You really just don't know.
It's true. It's really true. So you said that when you were younger, since you're raised pretty scientific, you were skeptical, but you had certain experiences. What were those experiences like then, and how did you conceptualize them when you were younger?
So the experiences where I started to become convinced of spirit were slightly different to the experiences of spirit. So the experiences of spirit began at a young age, as with most psychics and mediums. I probably was about 4, maybe younger, when I recall having like the first spiritual experiences. And it was very straightforward stuff for mediums, where it's, you know, I said like it was so normal to me. But maybe it's not normal, you know, I don't know. But I'd be lying in bed and I'd see faces and hands coming out of the walls, and there'd be people watching me sleeping. And, you know, and I'm looking at all this just thinking, I know I'm awake. I don't know what's going on, you know. And I'd go and tell my mom, and I'd be like, Mom, there's someone next to my bed. There's someone outside my room. She'd say, no, there's no one there. Come, you know. And then the one time she even got me out of bed and walked me around our entire property to show me there was no one there and that it's okay and I can go back to sleep. So I was like, okay, well, it must just be my imagination. I'm making it up. I'll go back to sleep. Right. So we rationalize the situation. And so then for the rest of time, every time I would have incredible experiences with spirit, I'd always just be like, it's my imagination, you know, and just brush it off as being very creative. But I'm not a creative person. That's the thing. I don't appreciate, it's not that I don't really appreciate fiction. I like comedy, but like I'm not really into fiction. I'm not really into sci-fi. I'm not into creative writing or fantastical stories and stuff like that. I'm appreciating it more now as I get older, but like I'm just not creative enough to make this stuff up, is what I'm trying to say. So then, you know, as I got older, and this sort of goes along with what you were talking about before about dreams, I started to have dreams that were premonitions of events to come. So I would have dreams where situations would play out, very vivid dreams, very lucid dreams, and then over the next few days they would happen. Now, one of these dreams, I was in college, and a friend of mine, that we were in the same classes together, we were working on projects together, so our energy was around each other a lot. And he came up in one of my dreams, and it was a very intense dream. And in that dream, I had a vision of him, and he was really upset, like crying and sort of a bit helpless and desperate. And I don't even know what the right word is, but I'd just say like he was actively upset. And I woke up from that dream the next day thinking, gosh, that's so intense. I think I'm just going to check in on him. And I sent him a text. I'm like, are you all good? Because I had a dream last night, you know, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, yeah, I'm fine. So, oh, okay, just a crazy dream. And then about 2 days later, that was on a Friday night. And then on the Monday morning, he texted me and he says, my grandmother's just passed away. I have to go back to Brazil. I'm going to lose my visa. I'm not going to be able to start my job at whatever investment bank. And I'm really stressed. I don't know what to do. Can you just come and meet with me? By the way, are you psychic or something? And I was like, ha, 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 that's so funny. No, I'm not. Like, you know, again, science. And like, I don't know if he was raised Catholic or whatever. I don't, you know.
How old were you at this time, if I may
19.
ask? Okay.
Yeah, I was 19. And so then I met up with him and, you know, and sort of like calmed him down. And I think we had a coffee or something. And then, oh, you know what? I never thought about this, but the dream was seeing him in the back of a cab. And then we took a cab after coffee. Interesting. Okay. Only just got now. But yeah, so that was the scenario with the premonitions. And there had been 2 other dreams on that same night that I had remembered that had then come true over that weekend. And I just thought, fancy that. Didn't think too much about it, dismissed it, whatever. Now, during this time, people had been telling me, you should meditate. Meditation's really cool. You will enjoy meditation. And I was always very like AAA type personality, working very hard and, you know, quite stressed out, very into my studies and my work. And then I was like, nah, meditation's like, that's for spiritual people. That's not for me. I don't need it. But then when I moved to New York and I started to work on Wall Street, I was really like, okay, I need something. Maybe I will try this meditation thing. And this was like nearly 5 years of people saying you should meditate. And I'd done yoga when I was younger. So like I'd meditated before and I knew that it was nice. So I joined a meditation group in Manhattan and the dreams started happening again and spirit came back and everything just started getting so much louder and stronger. And then it wasn't just seeing spirits before I fell asleep, it was seeing them during the day as well. That was when I would say, for me, it felt like it was getting a bit out of control. And I felt like
that's a big transition.
Yeah, I was like, I either need to go to the mental asylum or to the spiritualist church. Like it was at that point where I'm like, something's not right. I'm only joking. It never actually felt like that. But I was
right. Yeah.
Go learn how to shut this down. I knew what it was because I knew of people that did this work. And so I knew that I was getting connections, but I was like, I still want to be a normal person. I want to be in control of this. I don't want this to be in control of me. So I did some classes with the spiritualist church. I learned how to switch it off. And everyone else there was trying to learn how to switch it on. Well, not everyone, but almost everyone. So from there, during the classes, students would come to me after the lessons and say, hey, can you do a reading for me? Can you do a reading for my mom? And then their friends wanted readings and then their friends wanted readings. And so before you know it, here we are.
Wow. So they were just attracted to the fact that you're like, I've been experiencing this and I just kind of want to work with it. And they're like, oh, since it's already, you know, on, let's give it a whirl. Or like, how did that start to open up for people to come find you?
Yeah, that's a fair question. So we would do exercises in the class, group exercises, message circles, things like that. And then as I was delivering messages, and we'd also do partner work, you know, one-on-one where we'd read for each other and they'd say, wow, can you read more for me after class? Sure. You know, we'd go to Starbucks, we'd keep going and chatting. And we were all sort of learning together. And I still keep in touch with a few students from that class, which is really lovely all these years later. Some of them are my closest friends, which is really great. But yeah, it was just through practicing on each other that we realized the abilities that we had.
Wow. Yeah. And they were like, okay, it's clearly it is working for you. And then just word of mouth. And
yeah, really and it snowballed, you know, to this day. There have been moments where, you know, people are like, you should advertise, you should do this. And so I've tried it out and never really made sense. You know, I always get those, not always, but I think every psychic and medium especially the professionals do get some strange calls and emails from people who don't agree with this work and want to share their opinions. And so I just kind of thought, oh, I don't like advertising. I'll just go with word of mouth. And now it's just snowballs. So pretty much I'd say every single client I have is because someone else told them, and then they told someone else and they told someone else.
That's the ideal situation. Yeah, like it's just the need is self-generating.
Yeah. And I think when you work with spirit, spirit works with you as well.
Absolutely.
They have a way of sending people to you that need your help.
That's like the active part of the manifestation course, right?
Well, yes and no, because there's passive manifestation and active manifestation, right? So I would say like the haircut was active manifestation, but the spirit side was quite passive because I just kept showing up. And I've actually, I'll be honest with you, I've tried to quit this work many times over the years, especially in the beginning. I would say, okay, I'll do this for another month and then I'll go and get a real job, you know, I'll go and do something normal. and then someone will call me, can you be on this show? Can you be on this podcast? Can you teach at this center? And, you know, I said, of course, yes. And then I'm like, oh, I'm supposed to quit. Okay, I'll just, then 3 more months and then I'll quit and then I'll quit. And then I just never quit. So if you just keep showing up and it's easy, right, that means you are where you're supposed to be.
It's kind of interesting because, you know, sometimes when people, let's just say, have a skill that they can do, but let's say their ego's not in it because they're just like, I can do it, but I don't exactly want this, right?
Yeah.
It's funny how they can just do it because they're not overthinking it. And so I don't know if that was an aspect of it, but I know the first time I met you, you felt very calm and collected. And I noticed that, you know, because we were doing like a practice group
That's right.
Yeah, so there was other people in class, and you can tell, like, you know, the consciousness of people and how they feel, and they're like, okay, I'm just practicing, and I just want this to go well. And you were just like very just like calm and cool, and so there was like this air of professionalism around you because you weren't attached to the practice, and so that's probably how people, I would say, people were like, okay, can you help me? Because there wasn't these extra things you were working through. You were just, yep, I'll show up. I'll do it. What's up? Hi, let's go.
Yeah, I see that now, like as you're explaining it, and I do agree. It's never felt daunting to me. It's never felt, I mean, I don't want to disrespect the work, but it's never felt challenging to me. It's felt normal, you know. It's felt like, oh yeah, this is just second nature. To be telling people about their lives and what I see for them and what I feel for them and the dead people I see around them. I mean, to me, that's just normal.
I think it's very real. Like we all experience things very differently depending how we were raised, or maybe like just we're able to do it and we're just either we're like, this is a big deal or this isn't a big deal. And it's just our emotions follow suit with that. And so that was your real experience. And I find that really like fascinating. And I'm loving hearing about it.
Thank you. Thank you.
For sure. For sure. So so we talked about like kind of passive and active manifestation for a second, but it was like the wheel was going, the wheel was in motion, and there was flow behind this for you. So when did you just decide I shouldn't be fighting this because the greatest point of flow is obviously in this work?
Yeah, I don't actually remember like a pivotal moment. I think it was more of just a gradual transition. And I think it was also just stepping away from my other interests and allowing this to become the main show, so to speak. And then from there, you know, the more energy and more time, the more bandwidth that I gave the work, the more it grew. And I think at that point, that's, you know, when I started, I think there's been a lot of moments, you know, where I'll go and I used to travel a lot for events, not so much in the past few years, but in the beginning I was traveling a lot to different countries, different cities, different states. And it's so much fun, you know, to meet people in person and do this work. And I remember sitting on the San Diego cliffs at Ocean Beach and watching the sunset. And I think it was like a Tuesday afternoon or something. And I'd just done a gallery mediumship the night before. And I remember watching the sunset just thinking, I'm so blessed to be here. Because if I didn't walk away from that safe life that I had all those years ago, I would be sitting in a chair behind a desk, rotting away, working 100 hours a week for what? You know, and I think that's been one of the biggest realizations just in my life in general, is that you're here to have an experience. And if you can be provided for in a way that's enough for you along the way, then go out and live, because everything else you can't take with you.
No, you really can't. So as you're living and you're growing and developing yourself within this work, how have you found that you've changed since when you started?
I'd like to say I'm more patient, but that's debatable. You know?
You probably are.
Yeah, it's hard to
be,
remember
really
because I've been me the whole time. I do believe I'm more patient. I definitely am more trusting of the powers that be. You know, even when I could see it was working for everyone else, I was always like, but does it work for me? Is this actually what I'm meant to do? You know, there were so many moments of just like, really? Is this what I'm supposed to be doing? Because it was just so different from my logical path and from the life that I had envisioned for myself. Yet the joke is that it's exactly what I had envisioned for myself. I always knew I was going to work for myself. I always knew I was going to do something where I had to be able to do public speaking. I always knew I was going to do something in America, you know, so like the characteristics of it make sense, but the path, the method to the madness was just not what I thought would happen. And I think that's part of the fun, is that if you just kind of go with the flow, it can take you to some really wild places that you never thought you would go.
So if I may ask you, you know, because you're, you know, in disbelief, and you know, I think, you know, the spirit world is definitely known for putting us in disbelief. And you're so cerebral naturally. Do you just turn your brain off just very easily, completely when you're doing a reading? Like, do you just forget as soon as it's over? Like, I'm not quite sure what I said, or is a part of you present? Like, how do you I guess, turn off, in your experience, this very strong part of you?
So it's a lot easier to turn off now than it was in the beginning. And I think it's just been an ongoing process. My experience from my perspective when I'm in a reading is that I am in a trance-like state. So, you know, I won't start speaking in tongues or anything crazy like that. You know, it's not Harry Potter. I'd probably be a bit more famous if that were the case. But it's more just that I feel like I'm dreaming a little bit when I'm talking. And I think you mentioned that in the introduction, that as readers, you know, when we're delivering messages, it's not coming from us. It's coming through us from somewhere else. So I very rarely will remember what we discussed, me and the client, which is why I do encourage people to record their sessions. If you are someone that can read and see energy, you can probably see my aura shifting when I'm reading, and, you know, my voice might change a little bit. But not enough that the average person would really notice.
Your energy is different. Yeah.
My earphones are falling out.
No worries. No worries.
But to get back to your question, you know, in terms of weighing it up from the cerebral perspective, I mainly just believe now. Like, I've sort of come to the point where I can calm down with all the what ifs and maybes. But I will, when I'm delivering a message to someone that I'm reading for, I will only tell them a feeling on something if I'm very, very, very certain. So if it's something where they might ask, okay, do you think I'm going to get the job? Unless I'm feeling 100% yes, I will not say to them, yes, you will. And I know that some readers have the temptation to tell people what they want to hear to get them excited and just make them feel good. But I've managed to not fall into that trap. And I do find that it's better in the short term to disappoint someone so that they are saved in the long term or enlightened in the long term, than to sort of give them false hope in the short term and then in the long term they have disappointment.
Yeah.
So because of that, you know, that's the part that I say would keep my messages very clean, because if I have even the slightest shadow of a doubt that it might not be the exact message they need to hear, I will say to them, this is the part that I definitely know will happen. This part might be part of it, but stay open-minded, because that part I'm less certain of, as opposed to just saying this is everything and 100%, because people can take that as gospel.
For sure. Yeah, for sure. You have, there's a power with your words. And I think it's important that you highlight exactly where it is. Like maybe you might not know something, but just like highlight the experience going on inside of you, because I think that's the truest thing. My head, I don't think you'd like my head during a reading. It's very like, are we 100%? Are we 100%? You know what I mean? Don't say it if you're not 100%. But then spirit is actually saying like, just talk. I'm like, no, I didn't get the 100% sign. And they're like, no, you need to just talk. And then they're like, yeah, I can take that. I'm like, but I didn't get the 100% sign. Yeah, I can take that, but I didn't get the 100. You know what I mean? So sometimes
sometimes you won't know.
Sometimes you just kind of have to talk, I think, and just be really honest. Like, hey, I don't know if this is right, but I'm going to share this with you because this is exactly what I'm getting. And sometimes it's all that you need. And other times it's like, no, that doesn't make any sense. And you just have to, I think, be, at least, in my experience, this is just like a tangent. I guess I'm inspired to talk about the humbling nature of being a reader, because there's no logical compass.
Right. And in saying that, there's just so many ways that messages can be interpreted, but it's important to remember spirit never lies. Everything from spirit has a place. And it's, as readers, even if we do have doubts with information, we are obliged to share it always, because those are the moments where you're like, I don't know, but I see you driving a red car. They're like, no, I drive a blue car, but just go with me on this. It's a red car. And then a month later, they're like, I just bought a red car. I want it, and you're like, okay, so that's the red car. But it's important to still share it, like you said, even if it's not the 100%, because somewhere along the way, it all makes sense to someone. Yeah.
Yeah. I think the most interesting thing with that is when you deal with the future, because no one can say, yeah, that's what's going on. I can validate you. It's all up for grabs. And you just kind of have to be strong enough to just stay in, this is what I see. Because if there's no evidence of it happening, you're going to get a lot of no's. If you're telling somebody this is how your life is going to go, and they're like, I can't see it. And then, they come back to you a year, 2 years, 3 years later, be like, I could have never imagined this.
Yeah. Sometimes 6 or 7 years later.
I could have never imagined this,
like,
but
you
now
read
I
for me in 2013. I'm like, did I really? And you said this? Wow, really? So, it's amazing.
When did you start having experiences like that, when you went from, let's say, practicing or being a professional, and you're like, this is my real experience, and people would be like, no, that's not me, or okay, I guess I'll write it down, right? And then you started getting those emails coming in, whether it was months, years. Calise, you're right. Like, I didn't expect this. When did that start happening?
It actually started happening with one of the first development classes I was in, the circles at the church, because we did a message circle and I read for a lady. I don't even think we were supposed to be doing mediumship at that point. I think we were supposed to just be doing psychic. And I connected to her, and a woman came through and she showed me some shoes, and she showed me artworks and contracts, and it was basically her auntie who had passed away that was giving her information on how to divide the estate. And I said to her, here's some numbers, here's some contracts. If you still have the lease on the property or whatever, the deed to the property, go and look up this number page on the contract, because this is what she's showing me. There could be something there. And she came the next day. She was never skeptical or cynical, but she did come in and say that's exactly where it was, and I'm sending it to the lawyer. And that was sort of that first moment of like, oh my God, maybe there is something going on here. But I remember, and I'm sure there were more before this, but I then remember a couple of years later, just a year or two after doing the readings, a girl that had gone to college with my ex, and I had read for her, because he had told her about me. They were good friends. And then she came for a reading and she said, you know, you read for me last year and you told me that I was going to leave New York and move to Boston and that I was going to quit my job and all this other stuff. And she said, and at the time I thought that was absolute bleep, 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 you know. And I was like, thanks, you know. And then she said, but it happened, you know, I met this guy, I moved back to my hometown and I never thought I would, and I have this new job and it's exactly what you said. And I was like, cool. But then at the same time I was just like, I don't remember, you know. So I still want to share in everyone's joy, but you just do so many readings and there's so much information, so much energy that it's rare to be able to share in the same level of excitement in that moment.
Yeah.
It's never like a sort of yay, like told you so kind of moment. It's always just like, oh yeah.
It's
Okay.
a oh yeah, it's an oh yeah, that's for sure. If you know,
Yeah.
just depends on what people's recollection is. I think
Yeah.
it's so different, but I would imagine it's almost better that way to forget too, because like if you remember the person's reaction to giving them the truth and they rejected it, and you're you're in your formative years, you're gonna think,
I've thought
this is
about
not
this.
not.
I have thought about this and I agree. I would prefer to not remember, because after you step away from a reading as a reader, you always feel the love of spirit and you just feel, oh, that was so nice, you know. And they might be walking away thinking, I don't know. But then once the things start to happen and the messages fall into place, and but don't get me wrong, the majority of people that come for our readings, as you probably know, they are tuned in, they are spiritual, they do understand the symbolism and the timing of events. It's the minority of people that either are not open to it or they're a little bit nervous or anxious. They have a bit of fear around a situation, and they don't expect things to go a certain way. But look, if someone told me 10 years ago, no, not 10 years ago, 20 years ago, because I was doing this 10 years ago. If someone had told me 20 years ago I was going to be talking to dead people in America, so what are you talking about? What are you talking about? Go away, you're crazy, you know? But like now I'm like, oh yeah, that makes sense. I can see that.
Yeah, it's quite a jump, but here we are, right? Here we
Yeah,
are. In a moment, I want to take some questions too.
sure.
So Jesse Cat will be taking your questions in just a second, and anyone else who wants to put some questions down for Calise, please do so. Oh my gosh! All of a sudden, you know, my mind it was on something, and then where is it? Right? I was thinking about questions. Yeah, I wanted to ask. So, in your experience too, when you are reading, and you said the vast majority of people who come who are intuitive as well, but
Yeah.
let's say you see that they're like having a difficult day or they're going through something, or let's say if a person comes for a reading even and they just want one specific thing, but you're getting so much more for them. Let's say you even cover that thing, but they're so fixated on that one thing. How do you navigate someone's energy when they come to you, let's say if they are not in a state of flow to work with the reading?
Yeah. So it'll depend on the situation. Sometimes depends on the person, depends on the situation. I would say first and foremost, I get it. I get what it's like to be the guy that comes in and only wants one answer. You only want to hear one thing and you're there for that thing. And if you don't get what you want, you're going to be disappointed, right? Or maybe you're open to all possibilities, but you only want to talk about that one thing. I also get what it's like to not believe. So the majority of the time, it doesn't bother me because I know what it's like to be on the other end of it. I know what it's like to be the super skeptical person. It's like people that come into a restaurant and they're the diner, right? And you've been a waitress or you've been a chef. And so you know what it's like to not understand. So I know that they don't necessarily understand how the spiritual energy works. So to avoid things getting too deep, what I do at the beginning is I explain to them as much as I can in the short time that I do my introduction is how the energy works, just to adjust their expectation accordingly. And I'll say to them, look, I'm going to talk about a lot of things. We might cover the thing that you want to speak about, but I'm going to bring you other stuff. You might not want to hear it today, but tomorrow and the next day you might want to. So just bear with me on those. Now, if I'm talking and they're really just not receiving and getting very agitated, as can happen, then I stop the reading and say, all right, what are you here for? What do you want to talk about? Let's just do that one thing. And then I find once we've covered that one thing, they are more open and more receptive. So sometimes you have to just let them do it their way, and, you know, that's okay. That's okay too.
Great advice. Great advice.
Yeah.
So we're going to take some questions now.
Let's do it.
Yeah. And then to everybody wondering, so we're doing like questions on like energy, psychic mediumship, and it's just like about the process and about Calise's wisdom she can share with you. So no readings. With Jessie Cat, her question is, so did meditation help more with your gifts? And she also asks, how do we see spirit? I feel like everyone sees spirit differently.
I agree. I think everyone does see spirit differently. To address the first question, yes, I do believe meditation was the big leap for me between having experiences and then really having experiences. It turned up the volume on my abilities, is what I'll say. I had the abilities to begin with, but once I was able to be present and be still, my intuition became that much louder. The next step is understanding what to do with it. So I do think it is to everyone's benefit to get some kind of coaching or mentoring, or, you know, do a bit of research in how psychic energy works. There are some people that call themselves natural readers or natural mediums, I can't remember the names, but I'll say there's readers that have had training and readers that haven't, and there's a big difference in the types of readings and the quality of the messages between people that have been trained and certified and people that haven't. Both are gifted, but just, you know, taught differently. So I would definitely encourage everyone to meditate, even if you don't even think you're intuitive, even if you don't think you have a shred of an ability, you'll still get in touch with an intuition that's within you. So there's something to gain for everyone. How do I see spirit? Was that the question, the second part of it?
Yeah, she asked, how do you girls see spirit? I feel like everyone sees spirit different.
Okay, so sometimes I will see spirit. Okay, let's go like really light and then we'll go deeper. Sometimes I see spirit in a dream, and it's the person and they're alive and we're chatting and it's like, oh, hey, you're back. I knew you were here. And almost every single time the conversation is, I told them you were here. I told them you hadn't gone away. Come and I'll show everyone that you're still here. Like, I'm usually trying to prove the spirit world's real. So it's that kind of dream. That's the first one. And they're just like laughing and chilled out. The second way I see spirit is in the waking state. Oh, let's go a little further. Okay, so meditating, and they'll come to me, vision in my mind, and I'll see the person in my mind, and it'll be like watching a movie in my head. Then sometimes I'll see spirit in my waking state outside the body. And if you've ever watched that movie Casper the Ghost from the 90s, you'll know it was sort of like a luminous outline of features, right? Sometimes they come through like that, and I just get the luminosity of their aura and their features. However, the other part of the time, I will see spirit clear, 3D, full color, just like we are. And I won't even know they're dead. So
could you almost like, there's still that aspect where, you know, you could just put your hand through because they're clear 3D, but there was like this vapor quality, or did they just feel dense to you?
Dense.
Okay.
Like they're here right now.
Okay. Very cool.
Very cool. In saying that, sometimes they just show themselves very quickly, and I'll be like, oh, there's a woman. Oh, she's gone. Wow. Okay. That was a dead person, you know. And then sometimes they'll just kind of be there as part of the room. And there was a situation where there was a woman that I had had a whole conversation with, and then 2 weeks later, a friend of mine said, oh, did you hear about, you know, Yolanda? And I said, oh, did she die? Because she was just older, and I just kind of had a feeling. And he said, yeah, she died 3 months ago.
Wow. That would make me reassess a lot of things if that happened to me. Wow.
Yeah.
You've had experiences like that. Wow.
Yeah. And, you know, what do you do? Like, what do you do after that? How does my skeptic brain process it other than just to say, okay, it's real?
Right.
You know, like, what more do you need?
Wow.
I don't even drink alcohol, so it's like, it's not even, can't even blame it on that.
It's not an altered state. It's not yet. Wow. Yeah. Wow, you're gonna have to. I want to know more about that story. That sounds
Sure.
incredible. That
Mhm.
sounds like perplexing, wonderful, and like whoa, right? Wow, okay. So I guess really quick to answer Jesse Cat, the way that I
Yes.
see spirit is that a lot of times I will see things in my mind's eye. So I will see and feel usually at the same time. Like my scene comes with feeling. When I first started this work, my scene didn't come with feeling. It was just very objective. And now my feeling has a lot to do with if my scene is accurate. So the way that I've seen things has changed. I used to see an outline of a person a lot and feel that outline, maybe sometimes before I even saw it. If it was something standing outside of me and not just a picture inside of my mind, the experience of my inside experience with my mind's eye, with my clairvoyance. Um, and so just different things. And then as it evolved, I would see things like a mist or an energy form standing in a room. Or a lot times lately over the past couple of years, like more and more and more, I'll just it's with animals a lot, I notice. All of a
Okay.
sudden, I'm like, "There's something on the stairs," and then I'm just like and it's like a full figure, dense object, and then it'll just be gone, right?
Yes.
Or
Yes.
there'll be
Very
someone
quick.
standing on the stairs, but they're usually more mist-like. Like, they'll look completely there, and then they'll just evaporate. I'm like, "Oh,
Mm.
hi. What's up?" So, it's just right, there it's always changing for me, and I'm really intrigued by it. I'm very intrigued by sight. I have a lot of different sight experiences,
Mm.
different facets, right? So I could just talk about a lot about it. I'm trying to condense it for you for a hot second. So I could just keep talking, but yeah, and Calise, wow, I really want to I really want to
I've
hear
got
that one
same as
story.
you. I've got so many stories, and it's like, oh, how much time do we have?
How much time do we have? Right.
Yeah.
I guess the one I guess I'll share a quick one. One
Yes.
time I was at a conference. I was at a Celebrate Your Life conference like back in the day and I was in my early 20s and someone I think James Van Prague was on stage and he was doing a reading at the time. Someone was speaking. I know he was there that day. My recall is not great for I guess the
Mm.
initial who was on stage, but they were doing readings. And I remember there was a family and they stood up for the reading. And I remember there was this purple outline of a person putting their hand on the person's shoulder
Wow.
like, they were actually with them, but they didn't look like a person, it was just like this purple amorphous blob that came more and more like a person, and at
Yes.
first, there was purple all over her. First, I could see it coming for her hands because
Yep.
it was the connection of spirit, like, it was her energy blending with this person because the person
Yes.
was coming in for support. So at first, I was like, "Oh, like, what's that?" And then it started moving past her hand and then it started moving into a shape and I'm like, "Oh, okay, I don't know what's going on, but okay." So there's a lot of experiences where you won't understand what it is until years later and you're intrigued by what's happening and it's a learning experience, right?
That's basically, yeah.
Cuz I'm sure you didn't know what was going on when right, you were like she's been dead for 3 months.
Yeah.
Like
I was like,
what's this
of course she has. Okay.
If you can you give us a snippet of that story of how you were like, "Oh, what did that mean to me now that I know that? Now
Yeah.
that my
So
experience of seeing her actually physically like that."
you mean like my reaction afterwards?
Yeah, like how did you conceptualize that and what did that mean later to you of, "Wow, that was this."
I just accepted it because, like I said at the beginning, you can't be cynical because you just never know. And so after that happened, I was like, okay, this is another one of those weird moments in my life where my brain sort of blasted open and I have to now put it back together in a new way. And that happened the first time I had a spirit connection. That happened the first time I discovered psychic energy was real. That happened the day that I figured out that I was actually seeing and talking to dead people when I started doing my readings. I'd had so many moments like that. I told you about the car that switched on with no keys. I think I mentioned that story to you. Did I not? I don't
No,
know, but
no.
there was a car that switched on with no keys. It's sort of like physical mediumship stuff, and that stuff is always just when it's rare for me to have that, but if I do have physical mediumship and it gets a bit Hollywood, that's where I'm like, well, I'm not turning that tap on and off. Like, I didn't leave that door open. I know, you know, and so there's just things that happen when you work with spirit. Things get strange. I had one apartment where I lived above a Catholic church, and every time I lived there for a couple of years, and every time someone in my family would pass away or someone close to someone I knew, I would wake up at a strange hour and I would see a figure walking through my room. And at first I thought they were just coming to say hello. And I don't like spirits coming to say hi while I'm sleeping. It freaks me out, you know, not as much these days, but in the beginning I was like, go away, go away, go away, go away. And so then after a while I realized that someone had passed, and I was like, oh, okay, I don't know who you are, but I can see you're a man and I can see you around this age or whatever. And then the next morning I would text my parents and be like, so who died last night? And they were like, oh, you know, it's Dad's cousin and this and that. I was like, oh. And they go, how did you know? I said, well, came to visit me last night, so just thought I'd pass on the news. He's fine. You know, it's weird, but I'm lucky that my parents are open to it and they understand.
Well, yeah. Oh my gosh, there's so many things I want to ask you just by saying that. I'm going to
Sure.
go back to the questions. Like,
Of course.
as soon as you're talking, I'm like, okay. And then you told me about your science, you know, background, but then you told me you come from a long lineage of people, you know, in your family. So there's both sides. And so I want to ask you like all this other stuff. So you got me excited, but
Yeah.
that's a good thing, right? Rather more than less. Someone is asking about, how do we identify our guides?
The quickest and easiest way to foster the connection is to ask them to step forward during meditations, and then also talk to them. Talk to them. If you want, you can go to a reader and ask the reader to explain the guides to you, but you'll start to get familiar with their energy. As you become more in touch with the subtle energy, you'll become more in touch with who is around you. It's chicken and the egg. Like, if your strength is feeling energy, then your exercise could be to work with that energy more. But if your strength is having dreams, then it depends on who's asking what their strengths are as to how I would recommend to move forward. But overall, meditation is generally a good approach.
Absolutely. And certain things will surface sometimes just to keep you like on the path. Maybe it's not something that you will completely do, but it's just a reminder, right, to stick with it. Like, at times I get a lot of dreams, but definitely I would never say like dreams are my forte, but there's a lot of times sprinkled in my life where I get premonition dreams, or I go, oh, that's happening a lot lately. You know what I mean? So
yeah. Well, let's add one more thing to that and just say that
Sure.
It doesn't matter if you know your guides or not. You can still be psychic. You can still have a strong intuition and never meet your spirit guides.
Absolutely. It's a lot of times working with guides can be a very passive process. So not everybody leans into getting to know about who they are. And even within spiritualist churches, I think they really do downplay the use of guides, because they're just like, you're looking for evidence of the spirit world, and working with your guides is more subjective experience to who your team is. And so they downplay sometimes looking so much into that. So it's like, even different schools of thought, I've noticed, will lead you in certain directions with how you spiritually develop. I think it's like working with your guides is wonderful. It's incredibly empowering.
It is amazing.
You feel like you have friends that never leave you. Like, there's always like someone ready to drop in for guidance. And it's all through, like Calise is saying, in my experience, meditation, unless all of a sudden they smack you across the face and be like, hey, pay attention. And you're like, oh, what was that? But then learn how to talk to them through meditation.
Yeah. It's worth doing the work. I know a lot of people are like, oh, I don't want to meditate, but hey, look at me. I put it off, and then I finally did it, and look what happened.
Seriously, it's good stuff.
Yeah.
The sky's the limit. Highly recommended. So someone asks, can you two see your own future?
Yeah. The question is, do we trust what we see? Because I think everyone can see their own future. Everyone knows in a general direction what's going on, but believing it and trusting it is where things tend to get a bit murky. So, you know, you might know what's coming for you, or you might get glimpses of something, but you might put a positive spin on it, or you might put a negative spin on it, or you might know that you're going to be okay and get that big house, right? But then you might have so many financial losses along the way that you just give up, and then you change your beliefs. It's never going to happen to me. It's never going to happen to me. And then the opportunity finally comes along. You can self-sabotage, right? So I think it's very easy for anyone to see their own future, but to trust it is where it gets difficult. So I don't know about you, but for me, I always prefer to have a friend read for me than to read for myself, because it's just so much easier to believe it when it's coming from someone else's mouth.
I think it gives, to have that validation from another source is very powerful and comforting. And it's a true gift to have someone in your corner. It really is. So it's, absolutely. I definitely have had not a whole bunch of experiences where people read for me other than in practice settings. Like I'll get these happy accidents. It's not an accident. I don't know why I'm saying a happy accident. That's weird. They're, it's like we come in and it's just like, hey, let's practice. Let's see what happens. Right. So there's no, there wouldn't have been an intention for a full reading, and then maybe it will just go that way, or I'll just see what unfolds, right? So I think I haven't had a lot of personal readings in my life, and that's something I think I want to explore more. And it really is a blessing and help. It really is. Growing up, I did a lot of work, like internal spiritual development, self-development. And so I did have a lot of moments where I could see things coming ahead of time for myself and for other people. And I didn't always share it, because as soon as I would kind of open that door, I could understand that that person didn't want to talk about it, whatever. And so a lot of times I dealt with being aware of things that I was not able to talk about. And so it is a very real thing at times. I'm pretty forthcoming now, but a lot of times I will keep things to myself. If someone didn't pay me for a reading, I'll just keep things to myself. If someone doesn't want to hear it, you can't.
It's manners. It's just manners.
Yeah, it's manners. Correct. Like, why would you want to make someone upset? They're
like, here's my new girlfriend, and you're like, okay. And there's nothing you can say, because they're not a client. They didn't come to you for a reading. Or the hardest ones, I think, are when someone comes to you, a close friend or something, and they say so-and-so's not feeling well, or so-and-so's in the hospital right now, and you're like, oh, I see where this is going. And like, you just know, but there's no benefit to saying what you see. Sometimes it's not helpful. It's not healing.
Right.
And if it's not helpful in healing, it's not necessary to share it.
Correct. If the message that the message is intended for is not helpful or healing for the person receiving it, then it's irrelevant. If you feel like it's helpful and healing for you to say it because it's the truth, you just take a step back. The truth will always be the truth, regardless of if someone's able to hear you or not.
Yes, very well said.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I'm a big fan of philosophizing about the truth and what that means. So it is very possible to see our own future. At certain times in our life, it will be more clear or more difficult depending on what we're going through. And the last thing I'll say on it is there are some categories in my life where I'm very perceptive to understand my future, whether it's possibilities or something that is coming up. And there's other categories where I'm like, I don't know how this is gonna go. Right? We all excel in certain categories, whether it's relationship, health, friends, money making, we all excel in certain categories, and that can carry into how we read someone's past, present, and future. So it's fun to talk. We could talk so much. All these questions we could talk so much about. Someone mentions Casper was mine and my late fiance's. Her and her late fiance have a connection to Casper that says that I can keep you. Oh, that's a reference from the movie Casper. Can I keep you? I think. Always Casper cat till the end. So, it's a mention of Casper and her
It's
love
cute.
for Casper. Once I saw, and she continues, once I saw a woman standing outside my bedroom, I didn't realize what I saw at the very moment. So I looked away, clued into what I saw. Looking back now, she was gone.
Yeah.
Ooh, my computer is not letting me go down. Okay, here we go. So she's recalling, she's asking about, I guess, that experience, when you see something and then it, someone's there and then it's like they're not there, because she's describing more about that, or like
Yeah.
someone calling your name and you're like, right? And
Yeah, that's always funny.
those experiences, how do you, I guess, think or feel or interpret those experiences?
I just take it as I have an extra set of ears and an extra set of eyes.
I like that.
Yeah, like my dad has a really good sense of humor, and he says, like, you can hear things that because he'll joke and he'll be like, "Oh, Calise, she's got dog ears," and he's like, "Actually, you can hear things that dogs can't even hear," and I'm like, "Yeah, pretty much." So because I hear like other realms and other spectrums. So there was like one time we're at the supermarket, and when you go with one of your parents to the supermarket, you always lose them, regardless of whether you're 5 or whether you're 50. Like, you're always going to lose each other. And I remember one time I was grabbing some stuff, and I think I was there with my mom and my dad, and he was grabbing some stuff, and I just heard him say, "Calise," and I turned around, and he wasn't. He was right over there, but he wasn't looking at me. He wasn't paying attention, and he hadn't called me. But in my mind, I heard him calling me. So it was like spirit was calling me, saying, "He's over there. That's where you need to look." And then, so yeah, then in my head, I'm just like, "Oh, that was my spirit ears." Okay.
That is a thing. And I think, like,
you just accept it after a while. You can only fight it for so long.
I have this bad habit of sometimes I'll, like, not always, of course, like, I'm an adult, so I can kind of think my way through it at times, but
Yeah.
all of a sudden I'll just be attracted to going to a certain part in the aisle.
Okay.
I don't know why, like, I just will wander off.
Yeah.
And, like, my husband and we were like, "Well, why didn't you just tell me that you wanted to go look at that?" I'm like, "I'm sorry. I wasn't even thinking. I was just all of a sudden, like,
Just
like, I'm carried to a direction."
Yeah, it's the
And then,
clairsentient pull.
right. For
Yeah.
real. And then to get me back, if I all of a sudden don't find him, or if there's some other family member lost, like we've lost, like, mom before a couple times because she's wandered off, I go, "Do we go left or do we go right?" And it's a clairsentient pull, and it works. You can always locate your family members.
It is. And my friend lost her cat the other day, and we were out in the woods searching for it. And, and I kept asking, like, "Which way is it?" And it was like, "Here." Like I was dowsing with my hands. I was like, "It's it's there." And the other girl's like, "I agree with Calise, it's there." And so, then we go that side. And anyway, the cat came home, so it was a happy ending.
Good. I mean, hey, it works. And you found a cat. That's impressive.
I was
brought a
part
cat
of the team.
home.
Yeah, we brought a cat home. We did. We sure did.
Someone is asking a question. I think this is the final question we're going to take.
Okay.
Do you guys feel like people always want something from you? I would imagine I'd feel like I was always being used. Oh, interesting question. I think everyone would have a different answer on that, honestly.
Do you want me to start, or do you want to start with that one?
I'm comfortable either way.
Okay. Sometimes yes. Sometimes yes. I think what it comes down to is the friends that I've made that knew me before I started doing this work don't talk about it. It's like there's me, and then there's the abilities that I have. So think of it like if you're a singer or a pianist or whatever, you can do those things, but your friends might not have ever seen you on stage performing. So they don't even know what you do. You're just the friend. So the friends that I have from before I started this work professionally full time, they're usually very, very good at not relying on me for that stuff, but tends to be people that I meet through the work, not other readers, more just like people that were clients and become friendly, that kind of thing. It's very messy. You have to have very strong boundaries about that. And there have been many cases where I've sort of had to distance myself from certain people because they didn't appreciate those boundaries. So, yeah.
Yeah, I very well said. I think it just
But
depends
just to add
on.
one more thing, sorry, just
Please,
in
please,
saying
no.
that, when you really love someone and they're a really good friend, you will offer it to them. They won't be asking you for it. Do you see? So
Yeah.
it's like, then there's that part of it too, where it's like there are friends that know what I do that are really into the work and they never ask me for anything. And I'm the one that says, no, I want to talk to you about this. Let's look into it, kind of thing. Yeah.
I think that's pretty powerful that, you know, having a friendship where if someone was really in need, that like I would say or Calise would say, hey, if you would like some help, right?
Yeah.
Rather than people assuming or wanting or asking things, and they just, let's say, think, oh, this is who you are, so can I please have this? Like, it's almost like you go to an orthodontist who's a friend. Hey, can you look at my mouth for a second? I think there's something going on with my
Yeah.
crown, and it's just you know, it's just boundaries. I think depending
Yeah.
on your personality, certain things are going to sit well with you, certain things are not going to sit well with you, and everyone at the end of the day needs to feel like loved and respected. And I have a lot of friends who have no interest in this work, you know,
Yeah.
so we're never we're never talking about it.
Yeah.
And even
It's
with my
refreshing.
yeah, it's refreshing, but it's like you know, there's so much. It's funny because to me, spirit is everything, but you know, we're living this earthly existence where we do have to keep our eyes on other things in front of us because that's how we're living our human lives. And so there's so many chances to talk about life in the perspective of being human and sharing that with another person where actually a lot of times it doesn't even come up. It just so I know a lot of people who I'm friends with who, yeah, don't really even pertain to this. They'd rather talk about emotions or psychology. Maybe even the ones that I do who are interested in this stuff, they never ask, what's your perspective? They really don't. We just
Yeah.
kind of have just whatever is on our mind. And I never feel like someone's asking something from me. I think if I've ever had that in my life, I kind of pivot and I kind of understand who the person is. And I don't know, like I have to feel like a person would really respect me for me to bring them in so close. I hope that that makes sense. But for clientele, I've had people who want more and more and more.
Mm.
Like, hey, can I have 30 minutes more? Can I have an hour more? And yeah, sometimes that has been hard because if you're in the energy and you don't have good grounding, you're just like, oh, what's another 10 minutes, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so sometimes, yeah, people can really push on you for more. And that can be that's something that has to be matured into as well, you know. So there's these things of want sometimes, but I haven't dealt with that so much in my personal life because most of my friends aren't interested in this work. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So that's how it comes up for me.
A good friend should be able to discern the difference between, hey, I'm going to book a session with you, as opposed to, hey, let's go hang out.
Yeah.
You know, it is still possible to do a reading for a friend in a professional way and still have a friendship. It's just
Absolutely.
boundaries. Yeah.
It's just boundaries, and even with let's say people who want a reading for us, like it's just again love and respect for the work, love and respect for each other as human beings, and just gratitude, right? Gratitude
Yeah.
for what the moment is and what can be done with that moment. And that's that. I think that it boils down to that, and just to reignite that if that is confused or lost. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think great last question, right? Very poignant.
Excellent.
I like
Yeah.
some of these questions.
Very
So
insightful.
thank you, Calise. Where can people find you on social media, website, what classes you have going on? Can you share that if people want to come and
Yeah.
find you for various things?
Of course. So I am mostly on Instagram in terms of social media. I have a Twitter page, I have a Facebook page. I don't log in on them as much, so I'd say go to @Calise Simone on Instagram. Everything is just my name, Calise Simone. And you know, my primary page is me, and I'm active. Sometimes people do funny things on social media and they create duplicate pages. I only have one page, so find me, the one and only. You'll see Kelly's a follower as well, and I follow Kelly, so that's how you'll find us. And all my events are listed on my website. I would say the coolest thing I have coming up next is my energy healing class in 2 weeks. And I think there's 3, maybe 4 spots available left on that.
Ooh.
So just calisesimone.com/events.
Okay, that's coming up. So if you're curious about that, she's a wonderful teacher. Seriously, you will be nothing but happy. I can say
it's
that with
a lot
confidence.
of fun. The classes are a lot of fun.
So if you want some fun, if you want to dive in, join Calise with her energy healing class, and find her through online. And Calise, what is something that you would like to leave everybody with, whether it's an inspirational quote, a thought, a feeling? I always give the guest the last word.
Okay. So there was a poem that I was going to share, but I decided that I would rather leave the guests with the empowering concept that you are responsible for the life you create. So what you put out is what you get back. And if you want a life of abundance and joy and happiness, start putting that energy out there, and that's what you'll experience.
Abundance, joy, and happiness. Think on those things, whether you're dreaming or meditating. And thank you so much for being here, Calise, and everyone for joining, whether questions or viewing. And please go with love, luck, light, and don't forget to live, everybody. Thank you so much. See you next week.
Thanks for having me. Bye.
Bye.